Greetings, my imagination connoisseurs. Welcome to this, the 11th live chat from the Burnettwork. And I'm your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Robservations as well, of course. I decided to do one last chat for this coming New Year's. For New Year's Eve today, to address some issues and things that have come up and things that have been asked. The first of which, it was brought to my attention that today, maybe yesterday, I don't know when, Axanar impresario Alec Peters asked this question. What do you call somebody who you loan $15,000 for to buy a car and another $15,000 for to pay his rent? I have an answer for that. An employee. That's what I call that. An employee. Maybe because I was on that project for 3.5 years, and starting in October of 2015, I was supposed to be paid $3,000 a month for the duration of the Axanar feature film production, which was expected to take the better part of a year, if not more. I also, as I said earlier, this Blu-ray, produced the entire Blu-ray pretty much by myself, all the content, the 45-minute documentary, the audio commentaries, oversaw the production of the menus and the authoring, even ran a contest to create the cover of that disc. Now, I've been producing DVD and Blu-ray special features and discs since '99. I know exactly how much that cost, and let me tell you, it far exceeds $30,000. That was money that was being paid to me during the production or loaned to me. Alec gave me money all the time because I had none, because I wasn't being paid to work. And in California, that's a no-no. But anyway, Alec was very good to me that way, because I was providing most of the money that he was getting, the hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. That was pretty much not just with all the work that everybody did on Prelude to Axanar, but after that, it was really all my work. Sure, I had people helping me, but I was pretty much doing everything. And, that's what you do when people work for you, is you pay them, especially when you've taken in $1.5 million on a project. What do? You pay people that work on that project for you. That's what you do. And, there were times when I had to sell my beloved hot toy of the Ironmonger to Alec. And if everyone knows how much I love hot toys, that was painful. He had that on his desk the entire time we were in the studio. That was rough. I also sold Alec Peters my one-of-a-kind Martin Shadow skydiver from UFO because I needed money. And he knew, because he's a prop salesman, that I bought that for $10,000. When I had money, I sold it to him for 25% of that. So it's not like I wasn't trying to get by. It's not like I wasn't trying to live my life. But those are, I, as the guy said in Airplane, I bought my ticket. I knew what I was getting into. So when we crashed, it was no one's fault but my own. But I don't like this characterization that he's said of me of being a thief. I don't steal anything from anyone. There was no agreement that equipment that was bought for me that replaced equipment I'd been using, including my car, actually, which exploded, that was anything more than the cost or price of doing business until now, when I have been mischaracterized as a thief. Now, as I explained before on my other Axanar podcast the other day, when I wanted to make sure, as any good producer does, that all of our assets, especially digitally created assets, have redundancies, are backed up over and over and over again. So Alec bought me 2 drives to copy everything that I had ever created for the Axanar project. That was including all of the digital dailies and all of Tommy Kraft's comps and all the visual effects for Prelude to Axanar, because he'd never bothered to. He's the producer. On Prelude, I was just the editor. I was not the producer. I didn't have any oversight, but I kept everything safe, because if you don't have your assets, what do you have? So, I did keep all that, and I actually copied all of it for Alec. And I copied it to 2 hard drives that he actually had on the floor of his desk in Aries Studios for a very long time, months. And I would say to him, you should really take those home and put them someplace safe. Well, apparently he never did that, Maybe he did. I hope to God he found those drives, because part of the reason he got angry with me, he didn't get angry with me when I left the project, didn't really say anything when he went to Atlanta. It was all copacetic between us. Um, but when he suddenly needed something that he realized he didn't have, uh, I don't know. And here's something else. He's accused me of committing a crime, of being a thief. Well, Alec Peters was contracted by the late Gary Hutzel to sell his Star Trek collection. Now, I guess the deal they had, I'm not really, I think Alec told me it was, there's of course, a commission, sales commission. I don't know how much that works. And then the seller gets 20% on the dollar. Alex sold Greg Jean's model of the Starship Enterprise from Trials and Tribulations for $235,000. I have the bill of sale. I have the check, a copy of the check that was written to Alec for that money. Apparently, he gave Gary Hutzel's widow, again, I don't know for sure, but people should look into this, $100,000? Was that what he owed her? I don't know. Has he paid back Diana Kingsbury the tens of thousands of dollars she loaned him to keep Axanar going? You never heard about that, did you? But anyway, these things, these are all things people should discuss and find out. I have all the proof of all of this. And when Alec came after me with his lawyer and cost me thousands of more dollars this year that I didn't have to fight off his first threatened lawsuit, eventually I said, fine, show me evidence of all of this stuff. Where's my loan agreements? Where are these documents that I was supposed to receive, rather than just when Alec would PayPal me $25 here, $100 there when I needed it all? Anyway, so that addresses that point, first of all. Now, second of all, now you're going to have to excuse me. I'm going to have to read some emails. Did you guys know that Gary Graham at one point was going to quit Axanar? Yes, he was. And I think that I'm going to share these emails. Now, these have been shared before. I had to deliver these emails in the CBS lawsuit. I had to turn over all of these emails. So somewhere they're part of the record. But what had happened was, after we had shot the Vulcan scene, which had gone very, very well, and Gary enjoyed doing, it was great. It went great. But Gary was very concerned that Alec Peters was going to portray Garth of Izar. And I knew one of my goals in directing the feature was I had to get Alec to step down to play Garth. He just didn't have the chops. You can only be a Mary Sue and fulfill your childhood dreams for so long before you have to realize you don't have what it takes. You don't have the talent to fulfill these aspirations. That's why I don't believe in equality of outcome. I believe in equal opportunity for everybody. But if you don't have the tools and you don't have the talent to finish something, that's why you have other more talented people step in. That doesn't make you any better or any worse. But what you do is you protect the good of the project, and you make sure that you try and make the best thing you can, especially when people have given you $1.5 million to do it. That's why we stepped over the line into what could have been construed as a professional project, because of that much money. And if you've got that much money to spend that people have given you, you owe those donors your best foot forward. At least that's the way I've always seen it. Now, on June 27th, after we had shot the Vulcan scene, Gary Graham said, Rob, he wrote me an email on June 27th. Rob, I'd like to have a drink with you next week. Let's chat about the script and the upcoming shoot. You have a night that might work, just the two of us? I responded on June 29th. Gary, I'm open to any time. You should know Bill Hunt, who I work with on the Vulcan scene, rewrote half the Axanar script based on my encouragement. I felt what Alec and Christian had done up to now was sort of a mess. It didn't read like a screenplay. I worked as a story analyst back in the 90s, and I read many scripts professionally. At first, I was worried about how Alec would feel about this, but I got Bill and Alec together collaborating on a new draft, and I think they hit it out of the park. This was the second thing I had to do. And I admit I was Machiavellian. I did not tell Alec I had Bill come in to start rewriting the script. And then when I asked Alec if Bill could do this, even though I already knew it was in process. Alec agreed, which I was like, whew. And then Gary wrote back on June 29th. This is all 2015. Rob, the scene looks brilliant, meaning the Vulcan scene. Well done, my man. I would love to get together with you, Bill, even Alec. There were some things discussed between Christian and myself a few months back, and we both got very excited about how Soval may figure into the run-up to the war and even working behind the scenes, just so that it isn't all spaceships blowing things up. LOL. And then Gary Graham followed that up 3 minutes later. By the way, I didn't mean to put it like, and even Alec, laugh out loud, but as the director, I would love your ear to discuss Soval's involvement in the movie, because that's what a director does. He works with actors and addresses their concerns. The four of us, the three of us, or perhaps just the two of us, let us fuel up on whiskey and discuss Axanar soon before I go off to do my movie in Atlanta. Now, keep in mind, I love Gary Graham. Gary Graham is incredible. He's amazing. And Alec was still slated to play Garth at this time. I had yet to get him to step down. Now, on August 8th, 2015, I presume that Gary was already working on this film. Now, I had sent him a new draft of the script that Bill had been working on. And I said, Gary, I think your concerns have been addressed. And then he wrote back on August 8th, 2015, Rob, please keep the following between us. The timing of your email to me was precise and providential, because I had been getting somewhat close to stepping away from the project. I just couldn't square myself with the sudden glaring reality that the requirements of the central character Garth, in terms of experience, film acting know-how, and power, intensity, and that indescribable quality, charisma, would have to be carried by someone who knew the game and could stand to deliver, or all of our efforts would be in vain. I was, 2 or 3 days ago, trying to form the words of my statement to you and Alec of my decision in a way that would not deflate him. So sure I was of his intransigence and commitment to playing Garth. Your email was like a cool summer rain on a scorching Atlanta day, which was prophetic the way things went. Parenthetically, he said, I had actually prayed to God to help me resolve this quandary, and then I got your email. He goes on to say, I love Alec. He is a smart guy, and he apparently figured it out himself. And he is now fully in the game, because Alec had agreed at this point to step down. Now, there was an actor put forward to play Garth that we had considered getting. And he also wrote, now I'm not only fully back in, I'm excited about it. Now, I had mentioned potential actors that we had approached or were going to approach through Christine Sheeks, the casting director, to work on this film. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to talk about actors that we were going to approach, actors who would come on board, because it's not fair to talk about what actors were going to be in a project that never happened, or which actors never got a part for various reasons. That is the height of unprofessionalism. And I did send these letters to Alec eventually, and he read them. But anyway, I bring this up because these are the kinds of things that I was doing as a director and as the potential editor and the creator of this Axanar feature film that went beyond simple work I was doing, like this DVD or Blu-ray and DVD. I mean, the idea that the amount of work that I was doing was really, if you break it down, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And again, as of October of 2015, I was promised $3,000 a month, which would help me pay my rent and take care of things like auto payments, insurance, all of that. I didn't have a pot of $1.5 million worth of donor money to augment the meager income I had from Axanar, which is why I had a day job the entire time I worked on the Axanar project, all 3.5 years of my time there. So what I promised in this chat was to just answer questions, really, pretty much, about Axanar. So whatever you have to ask me, whatever tough questions you want to hear about, you want answers to, bring it on. Oh, I should say something else. I think it was in March of 2016, 3 months into the lawsuit. It was a dark time for these stalwart Starfleet officers of the Axanar project, we were all pulling our, what are we going to be, the unnamed John Does? What's going to happen? It wasn't a crusade for us. This was just a fun project that we were all going to work on. I wanted to make a grandiose sci-fi epic, but unfortunately, that was not, nor will it ever be, a reality. And I wrote some really scathing, incendiary emails because Alec was still at this point jetting off to Europe to go to his Warhammer conventions, or he was traveling up and down the coast, going to conventions promoting Axanar, while the rest of us were in the office looking at each other and wondering what the fuck is going to happen to our lives because of this. Am I going to have to like leave the business because I get sued into oblivion by Paramount and CBS, who created, ironically, the one single property I love more than any other licensed property, any other IP in my life, something I've been involved with since I was a child. Was that going to happen? None of that was ever addressed. You know, the fact that we stuck by Alec, especially Bill Hunt and I, we went in and we were very favorable in our depositions. And I think our depositions, both Bill's and mine, went a long way toward making it possible for Alec to even make these two 15-minute films. Now I ask you, how much is that worth to a person? Is that worth undying loyalty? Alec Peters is a man that will constantly tell you how loyal he is. Alec Peters is only loyal to you while he needs you. You know, being loyal to someone is standing by them after they've stuck by you for a year, going through the crucible of a lawsuit. You know, just because you don't get what you want from them afterwards doesn't mean you can suddenly turn on them and threaten to sue. But that's what Alec Peters does. He makes deals with people and he reneges on those deals. He does not live up to the loyalty. He does not live up to the promises that he makes to the people that are loyal to him, that stand by him, that make the things that he's most proud of. The things that Alec Peters, the one thing, his Battlestar Galactica auction, did he do that on his own? No. Many people worked on that, just like many, many people worked on Axanar. Many people worked on Prelude to Axanar. They gave it 100%. Everybody who worked on this project deserves kudos. They all need to be lauded for what they've done because their association with this product and project has cost them something. Now, I don't know what that cost is. To some people, it's probably very little, but to other people, it was a great deal. We had donors that gave us $10,000 each, $10,000 each to be associate producers on this project. Have those $10,000 donors received letters? Have they received promises of remuneration? Where are they going to get their money back? You know, perhaps if I do get sued by Alec Peters, I will start my own legal defense fund. And with that legal defense fund, if I make more than it requires to defend against his suit, where once again, Alec is spending where he's not making what donors gave him. He's spending money on frivolous lawsuits on people that helped him, that made him, that got him over $100,000 in donations because of a project they completed. Perhaps not on Alec's time frame, but the Axanar Blu-ray, the Prelude to Axanar Blu-ray speaks for itself. So anyway, I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer your questions now. And bring it on. Whatever you guys want to know, I will answer to the best of my ability. Because remember, if he does sue me, everything I say is legally actionable, and I'll be held accountable, and my feet will be held to the fire. So, you know, come on and bring it. I'm going to the top of the chat now, as I do. Let's go to the top here. I'm going to go down. Axanar, I'm looking for. What's the first? Hey, Rob, first question. Do you know what was lost on the drives that were lost under Alec's care? It was everything. Every asset that was ever created for Axanar. Now I sent him another drive, a drive I was using to transport the assets of Prelude. And I know that the director, Paul Jenkins, has been looking through those assets to find out if there's material of Karn, of Richard Hatch, that they can then repurpose and use in the two 15-minute movies. Let's see. Darkhawk Mark says, Rob Burnett making friends and burning bridges. No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm burning bridges. You know, if anything, I think my work speaks for itself. There's a lot of it. You could check it out. You could go buy, say, the box set of all 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation and watch 50 hours of special features that I worked on for CBS. Very successful project that was. Rob says, is this podcast brought to you by Jameson or cocaine? Ever fuck on cocaine? Oh, that's awesome. That's a line from Basic Instinct. That's what Catherine Trammell asks Nick Curran, Michael Douglas's character, Mick Curran. You ever fuck on cocaine, Nick? It's nice. Kudos to Darkhawk Mark for that reference, like that. Let's see. Let's go. Sounds like Alec got pretty well in the deal. Does he still have that ironmonger? Yeah, he's got my ironmonger. You seen how much that is worth now in the secondary market? Man, I needed money. I sold it to him. But I needed money. I take full responsibility for selling him ironmonger. Lucas Kendall says, this is a rerun. New stuff, please. Michael Hinman says, previously on Robservations. Yes. Boat Trek says, some baby mama drama. I don't know about that. John Parley says, Alex sold the Trouble with Tribbles Enterprise. He did. Alec discovered, what's really interesting is in one of his auctions, he had the dome from the K7 space station that he sold, but he didn't have the actual K7 space station model. That was nowhere to be found. And then Gary Hutzel's widow called him after Gary Hutzel took his own life. And Gary Hutzel, by the way, was a great guy who participated in the Star Trek The Next Generation documentaries. Wonderful, wonderful man. Alec uncovered the K7 space station model itself and the Enterprise. Both of these were built by Greg Jean. And it was like opening the Ark of the Covenant. There's pictures of me in the studio. I was there. I made a video, actually, of a video I still have of when we opened the box because we weren't sure what was actually in it. And then it was revealed to be the Trials and Tribulations Enterprise that was sold for $235,000. I have all that. I'm going to put it, by the way, I'm going to put all of this information up on my Robservations, Burnettwork.net website, which I encourage you to go see because, again, I kept everything. I have it all. Robert April says the Trials and Tribulations Enterprise, the Trouble with Tribbles Enterprise is in the Smithsonian. That is correct, Captain Robert April. It's the Trials and Tribulations Enterprise. Let's see. Gabe Kerner says, my producer was fired from Fox. Several members of our team were a consequence. I still love the show and my friends there. End of story. Me too. I do too. Storman1775 says, Rob, many of us want to know if you can confirm that both you and Christian Gossett tried to convince Alec Peters not to proceed with the rental of the studio in Valencia. You know, there were times when Christian and I did have conversations with Alec talking about the studio and not doing it because it was expensive. But I'm going to tell you, I'll be quite honest. Ultimately, I love the idea of having a studio because I thought eventually once Axanar was finished, we would then have this facility the same way that the Star Trek New Voyages and Star Trek Continues had facilities to make other things. And we would bring in other projects. I mean, our donors would have got what they paid for, which was a movie. And the fact that we still have the studio that we had to pay for and to take care of, we would bring in other projects. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, here's the thing. I talked about my first job on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Leatherface. On that movie, they bought a Ford Econoline van and a Ford Dually pickup truck with the understanding that they were going to be used for, 16 weeks, that we would wreck them. When you work on a movie, you wreck things like that. And then you can take back those trucks and sell them as used trucks. But those are part of the budget. You buy trucks as part of a budget, knowing that they're what are called in the biz expendables, and they get chewed up and spit out, and then you sell them off. But they're considered expendables, and that's what happens when you make movies. There's many things, whether it's gels for the lights, all kinds of stuff you have to buy in the course of making a film. Paint. These are things that if there's any left over, you still have them. You don't like dump the paint or give it away. So one of the byproducts of making motion pictures is there's all of this stuff left over. I'll give you an example. There's Gilbert, by the way. When I worked at Warner Brothers, I worked at Warner Brothers in feature production under the senior vice president of feature production, Bill Young. So I do know a little something about how a studio makes motion pictures. The Police Academy movies, they've got all kinds of things: motorcycles, jet skis, over the course of those films. All of those were actually in 2 semi-truck trailers on the Warner Ranch that's on Hollywood Way. Those are all items that were purchased through the budgets of those films, and they stuck around. And the studio then later has them if they need to repurpose them. They would. That's what they're around for. So this is not this is not some weird practice. When you buy equipment to use on a movie, that's the course of doing business. That's somebody and Furno says, yes, will you now confirm that you and Christian tried to talk Peters out of the whole concept of renting a space and building a studio at Kamikaze? I remember we had conversations. I can't remember this. I don't recall what conversations we had, but yeah, what we wanted to do, Christian and I wanted to make sure that the money was spent effectively on the project. And look, the first Kickstarter does say we were going to get a studio because we wanted to do, part of what we wanted to do was what Star Trek The New Voyages did and what Star Trek Continues did, and have a facility. Michael Hinman said, so R&B is God. Oh, I wish. Like that Simon Pegg movie where the cast of Monty Python imbues him with cosmic powers. I would love that. Angry Tom 316 says, Happy New Year to you, Robert. My birthday's tomorrow. I'm going to try and see Mary Poppins. Have a good one. I hope you do that. Boat Trek says, Axanar never went ax far. Bravo me. Jason Kovalik says, Terry McIntosh has claimed that by May 2016, the production was broke. Can you confirm that? It was not broke. Terry was wrong about that. The production was not broke by May 2016. There was always some money, because remember, Alec was putting his own money into the project, right? So was Axanar ever really broke? But I will tell you this. When I was going to direct the Axanar feature back in August of 2015, I was supposedly being given $250,000 for the budget, which was getting chipped away at every week. There was less and less and less. And I don't know why that was. I never saw the books. I never saw the books. I do know, however, that, Alec did say, like I told you, he did say that when he had to deliver his financials to CBS, that he was going to come back and pay me $20,000. He was going to say in the financials that he paid me $20,000 to do this disc to alleviate my debt. Well, my debt to him was money I was supposed to be paid during the project. Now, I don't know if he ever did that. I don't know if Alec ever submitted a $20,000 payment that he made to me for making this Blu-ray to CBS. If he did, then that was a lie. And perhaps CBS should revisit those financials. I don't know. I never saw them, so I can't speak to that. All I can tell you is that he offered to give me $20,000 to alleviate the debt he's now, threatening to sue me for. So, John Parley says, has John Van Sitters contacted me recently in the last couple of months? The only contact that I had with John Van Sitters in the last couple of months is when I found out that Diamond Direct was going to finally release the Enterprise C as a toy. This was an ongoing joke John Van Sitters and I had during the making of the Star Trek The Next Generation Blu-rays. I'm like, dude, am I going to get for the 50th anniversary my Enterprise C toy? And he would say, well, it's coming. So it finally is. So good on John Van Sitters, and he confirmed that. Max Kaiserman says, on the studio, there's a big difference. There are other rental facilities. Studios are not consumables. Also, New Voyages and Farragut had similar goals, a basement and low rent prices. Yeah, but that's so. We live in Hollywood. Be that as it may, how much money was being spent, I think that's sort of immaterial. It just depends what you're trying to do. You can't, again, just because somebody else is doing something does a certain way doesn't make what you're doing any better or any worse. We wanted to eventually make movies. Sam Kara says, was Alec running his other business, PropWorks, sans rent out of the studio that donors were paying for? Well, Jared Hunt and Dean, to a certain extent, Dean Newbury worked on that, but it was mostly Jared Hunt, and he lived close by So while everything, sure, there was stuff being stored at the studio, and Jared would come and go, and he also helped Dean and whatever needed to be done. Maybe you could say that. I don't know. I don't know if PropWorks paid rent to the studio. I don't know. I didn't. Uh, that's a question for the IRS, I think, to see what was declared, what wasn't. I didn't get any tax forms from Axanar. Max Kaiserman said, "Did you ever witness Alex spending donor funds on non-Axanar expenses?" I can't speak to that because I don't know. I never saw the books. I don't know, but I do know that Alec lived on prop sales. We all had other day jobs. Like the entire time I worked on the Axanar project, from when I worked on Prelude all the way through the end of May of 2017 when we left the studio to the time I resigned, I was working on other independent film projects the entire time. So I don't know. Vesna says, "I have no question at this time. I'm here just to wish everybody the best for the new year. Have a great time. Make love, not war, and raise your glass. Cheers, everybody. See you all next year." Vesna lives in the Balkans, so good on you. New Year's is going to be upon you at any moment. Michael Hinman asks, "Didn't you think it was odd you were part of a production that raised 1.4 million, but you were given a shrinking production budget starting at 250,000? Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. But again, we were trying to build this studio, and things took much longer than they should have. But again, I wasn't in control of the purse strings, nor was I in control of the project. I would have approached it as a producer far differently. Now, wasn't that a red flag? A red flag? I mean, here again, it wasn't my money, and I wanted to make the movie. That's what I wanted to make. And I was going to be able to make probably the first 45 minutes. Just so you guys know, we were going to be able to probably, even with $250,000, make the first 45 minutes of the Axanar feature, with one exception. There's a landing party scene that we would have to shoot on location that was going to be difficult to do for $250,000. But again, that was chipped away at, so I was never able to realize that. But, we were able to do the Vulcan scene, which is 3 minutes. And if we spent, let's say it cost $20,000, which I don't believe it did, but let's say it did. If 3 minutes of Axanar with virtual sets were going to cost $20,000, the real sets that we were going to be able to shoot on would cost a lot less, and we could shoot a lot more of the film that way. So I was confident that we could get the first half of Axanar finished, get it done, get it out there, and crowdfund based on that first half. John Parley says, "When you said Alec put his own money for the Axanar project, money from where? He didn't have any other steady income sources." No, he did. His prop business was active, and he was constantly selling props and dealing props. He also bought props at the time too. He bought the original artwork for the Silent Running one sheet for himself. He bought Captain America's shield. He bought Khan's tunic from Space Seed that he wears to dinner with Kirk and company when he first meets them. So it was a give and take. I don't know. Shane Acree says, "What made you decide to work with Alec in the first place? What was your history with him before Axanar?" I had no history. I'd vaguely heard of Alec Peters because of his Battlestar Galactica auction. I didn't know him at all. And I'll tell you something, what made me want to work with him was he seemed like a great guy. I mean, I don't think Alec is a bad man. I don't think he's a bad person. I think his heart's in the right place. He was a good friend while he needed something from me. And I liked his vision. I liked his enthusiasm. It was great to be around him. We were both peas in a pod. We were both guys who really wanted to make this movie. But I made the same mistake with him that I've made with actually many people I've worked with in Hollywood that has led to trouble. So this is a lesson I've yet to learn, which is I just assume that everybody enjoys the process and enjoys movie making as much as I do. Like I could sit in front of a computer screen and edit for hours, days, months, and be happy as a clam. Not a lot of people are like this. It requires an attention span, first of all, and it requires dedication and the love of doing what you're doing. If you don't have a love of the process, you shouldn't be in the motion picture business. And that's been problematic for me because I don't understand why anybody wants to get into the entertainment business if they don't want to take the time that it takes to really succeed. I mean, I get it. Everybody wants to be part of the finished product. Want to stand by and work on that finished product in the months and years, sometimes decades it takes to get those projects finished. So, it's something when Geek with a Side of Nerd says Rob will finally watch Spider-Verse when he gets a 3D Blu-ray from Amazon Ukraine. That's hilarious. Let's see. Kendall Bird says, do you think the flurry of work being done to the Axanar Bridge now is for filming Axanar or renting it to other productions? Do you think the 2 15-minute shorts will be produced? I think because Alec was doing Axacon, which, again, something Alec spent his own money on that did not turn a profit. Here's what I don't understand. How do you have both of your actors, two of your marquee actors now that Richard Hatch is gone? You have Gary Graham and J.G. Hertzler in your studio, and you're going to shoot a green screen movie, and you don't bring the costumes and get a makeup person. It's Atlanta. They're making Marvel movies. You don't think that there's somebody around that could come in on the weekend and do Gary Graham's Soval makeup properly? You sit them down, you get your camera equipment, and you shoot them against a green screen. I mean, these are things that can be done, and that wasn't done, which I don't understand. If you're making 2 15-minute movies, you pay them their SAG daily rate, you set up a green screen, and you shoot it. Better yet, have your Axacon visitors witness the whole thing. They can watch, turn it into like a stage play, set up chairs, and shoot their sequences. They get to your donors and your fans would get to see how a movie's made. They get to see how those 2 15-minute segments were made. And you get these two actors, great actors, shooting what they needed to shoot. You could turn, maybe that's all you ever had. If you only ever had those two actors in those scenes, you might be able to turn that into two. I've made DVD documentaries with two people that are half an hour long. And I mean, with visual effects, they'd only have to be on camera, for what, 10, 15 minutes each total? I don't understand. Let's see. Top Gun X10 says, Rob, your observation of Alec was much different than mine. I met him at a friend's house when he brought the Horizon model from Cisco's office to my friend to be repaired. Used car salesman vibe. Well, yes. But when you're both, I tend to overlook those things when you're working on a project together because I feed off people's enthusiasms. That's why I love as an editor to work with the director, because I love feeding off that creative energy. There's nothing better to me than to collaborate. Making movies appeals to me. It's fantastic. Max Kaiserman says, have you heard the allegation that Alec was selling repos as screen use props? If there's one thing I can say about Alec, that he really took his prop business seriously, and he diligently tried to do the best he could, at least the way I witnessed things. And certainly Jared Hunt, who now has his own prop business, did. I never saw any kind of shenanigans like that. Everything was authenticated to the best of their ability. And I have nothing but praise to say for what they were doing, at least what I witnessed. And Jared has his own prop business now. And if you're interested in props, I would suggest seeking Jared Hunt out, or Tiana, who actually sold the Gary Hutzel Trials and Tribulations Enterprise for Alec. They do great work. Let's see. Jason Kovalik says 1.5 million raised with only 250K for 45 minutes. Well, you do what you can. I worked on a film project I produced where the budget was $4 million, but $1 million of that budget went to one of the producers because we needed that producer's name and abilities to make the film. Can I do a tour of my comic collection one day? Oh man, I want to get rid of all my comics. If I'll sell them to you guys for $1 each. I've got tons of stuff from the 80s. I have everything now in omnibuses, my actual collections. I got the first appearance of Deadpool and Cable, mint condition. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of my comic collection. Kendall Bird says, finally, with pockets as deep as they seem to be, why not just make the film himself? I don't know. I mean, Alec has bought a house in Atlanta. I know he sold his old house in Florida. He has a coffee house in Atlanta. He has apparently money to keep suing me. As he said, he already paid his lawyer retainers to come after me, as you saw in the email that I posted. I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand why every extra dollar of money Alec has, he's not doing something to make. And I guess he'll tell you that he finished the bridge set. But if he does two 15-minute versions that are in the same vein as Prelude to Axanar, he doesn't need sets. So, whatever. Circus Maximus says, Rob's still waiting on my version 11 script. I have a lot of people that have DM'd me. I'm trying to get through that list. It's been tough because I've got family in town. Bright says, so true, R&B, there's so much that goes into each project before it hits the finish line, takes dedication. It does. Yes. Captain Robert April says, I said a few times that if I won Powerball, one of the things I do is buy out Alec and get Axanar finally made. I've had these fantasies of making Axanar myself. I would do it if I had the money, but now I wouldn't, because here's the thing about Axanar. It's when we were doing it, that canonical era of the Star Trek universe was unexplored. Now it's been explored. I don't think explored as well as we would have done it, quite frankly, but it's explored. Axanar is moot. It's always ever going to be, it was never going to be canonical, but it kind of, like a great Star Trek novel, in people's minds, it could have been canonical. We certainly were going out of our way to make it feel or appear canonical. Schlabeasts asks, when, Rob, can we expect the Axanar goodies on your website? Well, you know what? I was going to do it, so I figured I'd do this chat instead, but I have so much good stuff that I forgot I even had that I'm like, ooh, there's more stuff here than I even used. I turned in, as I said, an hour-long tape to CBS during the deposition, and I was going to release that tape, but with commentary in between each of the sections, and then tweaked to make it more exciting to viewers. So I'm probably going to work on that in the next couple of days and get it out in a day or two. I'm going to release it because it's great. And you know what? The donors would appreciate it. Let's see. Let me see where. Michael Hinman asks, what do you think it will take to repair your relationship with CBS? You made great special features in the DVDs, so hopefully your talent will speak for itself. But still, Axanar, good point. I don't know if I'll ever look. Everyone knows, especially people like John Van Sitters and Marion Cordry at CBS, why I was involved with this Axanar project. Or maybe they didn't know why, but everybody liked Prelude to Axanar. They did. They liked it. I have the emails to prove it. And it was never something we didn't know it was going to go this way. When we started out, it was going to be a fun thing to do. In my mind, it was going to be a fun project that sort of became, when I took over as the director, like, I never thought I was going to direct the Prelude to Axanar movie. When Christian left, I felt an obligation. I'm not going to lie. What an opportunity. But I thought it would I still believe that we could still get it going the same way that Prelude to Axanar was done. I really wanted to do it, which is why, anyone who will tell you, especially Diana Kingsbury will tell you, I would write detailed descriptions to Tobias about what I wanted to see in these effect shots. I would sit in my office on my back with my camera, taking shots of starship models and what directions and things that I wanted to do. And then I would send him those descriptions, and he would send me back, him and the Lightworks would send me back animatics. It was the most fun I ever had. It was great. But I don't think, look, Hollywood has a short memory if you make money for them. And, CBS, there's a lot of changes going on at CBS right now. I think ultimately the lawsuit was won. Alec is allowed to make his 2 15-minute films. It's been 2 years. Why they haven't been made yet, I will never know. But if somebody said to me tomorrow, Rob, you need to start shooting on Wednesday, and that's the only day you can shoot, can you come up with 2 15-minute Axanar movies? I could do that. I'd call Bill Hunt scripts in 2 days. I'd call actor friends. They might not be Gary Graham or J.G. Hertzler or Kate Vernon, but I could make an Axanar. I could make 2 15-minute Axanar movies because I've worked on projects like that before. Lucas Kendall's film, Skyfighter, it looks incredible. He shot it in 2 days. Amazing. And by the way, we did that. That's another movie that got shot and almost completed in the time it's taken Alec to make 2 15-minute Axanar small films. Max Kaiserman asks, Rob, that would be a great idea, but the prevailing theory is that Alec will never make the show because he's only doing this as a scam. Let me debunk that. This was never a scam. It was never, nobody would ever try and say they're going to make a Star Trek fan film to bilk the Star Trek faithful out of money. And I think Prelude to Axanar proves it wasn't a scam. Remember, Prelude started out as a project which had $10,000 asked. We got $100,000 in instead. That was amazing. I mean, I think then the idea was that the Axanar feature could definitely be more profitable. We never asked for the amount of money that was generated by Axanar was more than we ever thought would be generated. And I think the prevailing thought from everybody was that, well, with this kind of money, we need to do something bigger and better. We have to perhaps create an environment where, I mean, Alec genuinely wanted other fan films to come and shoot in the studio that we were hoping to build. And our dreams, I like to think, to bring a Star Trek metaphor into it. In the first season episode, This Side of Paradise, this is the episode that's set on Omicron Ceti 3 with Jill Ireland and the spores, and Spock is allowed to fall in love with Leela Kalomi. Kirk says, and Elias Sandoval has this bucolic farming colony that's just this beautiful, wonderful place. But at the end of the episode, you realize that it's stagnation. Humanity living in a utopian environment is the stagnation of the human spirit. And Kirk says, and I think this is the correct quote, he says of Elias Sandoval's dreams, another dream that failed. There's nothing sadder. And that's kind of what I feel about Axanar. It's sad. It's too bad because I think it would have been great. John Parley says, are you one of those Star Trek fans that think the motion picture is amazing, more so than Wrath of Khan? Well, yeah, I think that Star Trek the motion picture is amazing. I don't think it's more amazing than Wrath of Khan. I think Wrath of Khan is a better motion picture. But I think Star Trek the motion picture is my favorite Star Trek movie for a number of various reasons, especially it has to do with the time when I saw it. Remember, there was Star Trek, they tried to bring Star Trek back so many times in fits and starts, and part of it was the amazement of, I don't think the Star Trek universe has ever been presented in such grandiosity and with such imagination and verve as it is in Star Trek the motion picture. Not until J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 09 has Star Trek had that kind of scope and a budget. And even then, I think Star Trek 09 fell short of the awe and wonder of Star Trek the motion picture. Is there any way to get the script that isn't on Facebook or Twitter, says Sirius Prime? I'm not on either of those services. Yeah, find me on the Burnettwork and find my email, and I will, here on YouTube, subscribe and send me a query, and I'll make sure you get it. Let's see. Great idea for how Axanar could have been done with the two actors and green screen. Yes, a real producer would have thought of that. A real producer would have said, oh, I need to make 2 15-minute segments, and I've got my actors here. Why don't I use the money for Axanar? And how many more people would have come if you had said, I'm going to film J.G. Hertzler and Gary Graham doing their 15-minute parts, doing their parts for the 2 15-minute Axanar, Prelude to Axanar sequel films, and you guys can watch. How many people would how many people would have signed up? How many people would have said, oh my God, I get to see these two incredible, beloved Star Trek actors who we've watched for, 25 years. And I get to see them actually act and play their parts from Axanar. It's a no-brainer. This would have been the first thing I would have thought of if I decided to do Axanar. But no. Let's see. Robert April says, I'm pretty sure we could knock out the scenes of April on the Enterprise bridge in a day or two, with most of the time being taken in redressing the bridge to a pre-TOS point. You could have. I don't know if April is on the Enterprise bridge in a day or two. I don't know. I haven't read the scripts. I don't know them. You should see the Mega Bloks Enterprise. It's an awesome Lego set. Yes, sir. Neil Bulk says, instead of saying, I never saw that happen, you should say, I don't Robserve that. branding. I didn't that's very funny, Neil. Neil Bulk, of course, has been involved with La La Land Records. Uh, just like with Lucas Kendall, they're unbelievable releases of the Star Trek music. And Neil will tell you, I was at a party at Jeff Bond's house when he told me that they were releasing the library music from the animated series. And I had a conniption. I mean, this was amazing. It was amazing to get that. La La Land Records has been doing the Lord's work when it comes to releasing both the TOS CD box that I've often waxed rhapsodic that it's one of the great box sets of all time, if not the greatest box set of all time. And then they've continually put out their 50th anniversary releases were tremendous. Jippy 050 says, any footage from the Origins Heroes vignettes? Yes, there is. Yep. Cut together. First time any Star Trek like that on the original series has been shot in widescreen. Yeah, it's cool. Tobias Richter even did 3 visual effects shots of the Enterprise in orbit around the Tantalus colony. Wait, Tantalus? No. Maybe not. Tantalus is that Dagger of the Mind? I think it is. Anyway, it's all a mess. But yeah, I have all that stuff. I don't know if Alec does. I copied it for him. I didn't copy my edited footage, but I copied because he doesn't have the those files, but he has the raw footage. Or no, he lost it. Hassan Chavez says, do I have to be a Trekkie in order to enjoy Free Enterprise? No, you don't. It would help, but you can love any genre material. But do me a favor, if you're going to watch Free Enterprise, don't watch it on Amazon Prime. Get your hands on the Anchor Bay 2006 DVD. Captain Robert April says, we're still waiting for Alec to have the moment Sandoval had at the end of the episode. We've done nothing here. Yeah, well, Michael Hinman says if Alec wants to make Axanar, he should actually do it. It's been 2 years since the settlement. Yeah, that's what my thought. I would love to watch it. I hope it's great. Let's see. The problem, Top Gun X10 says the problem is Alec doesn't know how to make a film and can't bring himself to trust those who could. But he used to know. When he was working with Christian Gossett, Christian brought all of his people in from his production partners from Metamorphic, like Jennifer Weberly, and they did a phenomenal job producing Prelude to Axanar. Really well done. He had it there. Let's see. Michael Hinman says, I never took the motion picture seriously until Free Enterprise. Seeing the love for the motion picture made me love it too. Well, that's good. I'm glad you think that, because it was an amazing thing to see. Casey Shafsky says, so moving goalposts, more money came in with the $250,000 budget. Where or what was all the money used on? Well, look, that studio, we put in that giant green screen and an incredible lighting grid. How much those cost, I don't know. They were never used. We never shot anything in that studio. I did bring in a music video one weekend and we shot that there, but it was, and we did shoot but it's unbelievable. The Axanar Defender says, you need to stop bashing Alec and imagine he is so superstar marketeer that understands the reason why you made the Axanar flamethrower along the side of the Axanar lunchbox. Alec Peters said this in an email to my business associate. He said he wanted to destroy my reputation and ruin my life. He said this while he was trying to sue me the first time before his lawyer quit. This is what Alec Peters put in an email and sent to my business partner. That's all I can say. And, Axanar Defender says, Alec is not a perfect human being. He's flawed like the rest of us. Stop having such unreal expectations of his ability. It was on him for a year to come out of quiet depression mode and relight the fires. Quiet depression mode? What are you talking about? He reveled in the lawsuit. Quiet depression mode, please. Shane Akery says, is there anything you can do to rebuild your reputation and the goodwill that you lost the last few years as a result of working on Axanar and making... I don't know. I mean, I'm doing other work. I've got a great film I produced coming out that we're finishing up. I'm doing Lucas's short film. I've got many different projects. I did a medical lecture series that you should all go see. Check out Crisis Medicine. I spent a year making it, a 50-hour long medical series that deals with pre-hospital care in a active, violent environment. It's one of the things I'm most proud of I've ever done in my life. Let's see. Sirius Prime says, speaking of Star Trek The Motion Picture, did you ever see... Did you ever see... I just lost that. Did you ever see Star Trek Legacy? It was a 22-minute edit of the movie with nothing but the Tron soundtrack. Yes, I saw that. It was great. Lucas Kendall says, please show us Alec as Jessup from A Few Good Men. Oh, I will. Soon. And by the way, yes, I checked into that actually legally. I do own all that footage. You know, Alec actually went out and rented costumes for himself and his cast to do a scene in an acting workshop, knowing full well I was coming to shoot it. So the idea that he tries to say, "Oh, you were in Richard Hatch's acting class and you didn't have permission," I'm like, "Yeah, I had full permission to be there, and everyone knew." So that's absurd. I shot it. By the way, Alec never asked for that footage. Never asked. It was on those drives, however, that he seemed to have lost. Let's see. Emily Chalmers said, I've borrowed my uncle's collection of Hammer horror movies. Now I'm in love. As well, you should be, Emily Chalmers, because Hammer horror movies are amazing. I used to live across the street from a girl named Emily Chambers. She's great. Let's see. John Parley says, I like that transporter static screen effect you've got going on sporadically during my live feed. Do I? That's interesting. I didn't know that. Let's see. Gabe Kerner says, Rob, what did you think of the Red Letter Media's recent review of the motion picture? I haven't seen it yet, but I hope it's great. I'll watch that. I love Plinkett, and I love their reviews. George Silsby said, did you ever see Seth MacFarlane's fan film he made as a kid? It was wild. I liked it. Axanar Defender says, we are back. We are not stuck 2 years in the past when we lost our ass to CBS. Everything is woulda, coulda, shoulda now. Hindsight is 2020. You guys, whatever. You know, it's been 2 years. You haven't made 2 15-minute short films. Get on it. Sean Meehan says, if given the opportunity, what era of the Star Trek canon would you like to explore in film? An era we haven't seen yet. Let's move forward. Although, truth be told, I'd love to make a DS9 movie. Homer Frizzell says, have you seen the version of Prelude without Alec Peters in it? Yes. Look, I thought Alec did a fine job in Prelude. I mean, I went through every ounce of his footage, and I thought he did a fine job. It's definitely serviceable. I'll put Alec Peters' performance in Prelude up against 99% of the acting and 99% of the fan films out there. Let's see. The Axanar Defender says, the lawsuit has been over for a long time now. Richard died, and people process things differently at different times. Are you kidding me? Are you actually trying to say that Richard Hatch's death has to do with why the Axanar 15-minute shorts haven't been made? That's ridiculous. And that is an excuse. Life goes on. People die. Get over it. I loved Richard Hatch. As a matter of fact, one of his voiceover for when he's talking about storming the gates of the trailer that I made during the lawsuit was one of the last things that he ever did. So, Rob, can we crowdfund to do a fan film based on your life? Oh, you don't have to. You don't have to. I think I'll be doing another. You know, there was a movie already based on my life called Free Enterprise, first of all. But second of all, the great Lucas Kendall submitted something to me the other day that's kind of something along those lines. It's pretty damn great. Love to make it. Captain Robert April says, I'd watch those guys talking about any movie ever made. I think I would too. Robert April says, Alec is Jessup. That should be good for a giggle. Oh, it is. It is. And it's even funnier that somebody felt that they needed to be in full costume to do a scene in an acting class. But, you know, whatever happened to the Garth short you filmed on Cauley sets? You know what? It's right there. Right there. You'll see it soon. Circus Maximus says, Vampire Circus is one of the best vampire movies ever. I agree. It's one of my favorite Hammer horror films, and the Blu-ray is incredible. John Parley says, will you be regularly checking in to give us more Axa Monitor? Please laugh out loud. I'm hoping this is not a short-lived thing. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start build my brand both with Robservations and with the Burnettwork, but Axanar is a great partner in that. Geek with the Side of Nerve says, off topic, but I just finished Travelers Season 3. It was not what I was expecting, but still good. Yes, I agree with you. George Silsby says, Rob, does John Campea have an opinion about the lawsuit you guys may have discussed offline? No, I haven't really talked to him about this. I talked to John Schnepp about it all. John had many fine things to say. Chris Connolly says, Happy New Year's Eve to RMB, the king of the imagination connoisseurs. Thank you for that. Gabe Kerner says, Garth in Prelude and Garth in the movie sound like the difference between what you would need from William Sylvester and Roy Scheider to do for Haywood Floyd in two distinct projects with different leads. Yes, that's exactly right. That's actually what Gabe Kerner just did. Was he drew a comparison between William Sylvester in 2001 and Roy Scheider in 2010. I completely agree with you. That's a very apt distinction. How big is that enterprise model on the top shelf behind you? Both of these models are 1/350th scale. This is the Master Replicas model. This is the Polar Lights refit. It's just they're far apart. Alec is Jessup D7s. You can't handle the D7s. Yeah. Kendall Bird says, I love the evil grin you get when you talk about the Heroes footage. Well, it's not an evil grin. It's the only Star Trek footage besides the Vulcan scene that I directed. So I'm actually pretty proud of it. Although it could be better, as everything I've ever made could always be better. Perkrutke asks, has Alec contacted you again since yesterday, or has he been silent? No, he's posted on his Facebook page. He asked the question, what do you call somebody who you loaned $15,000 to buy a car and $15,000 so he wouldn't be homeless? And my answer to that is, somebody can go post this on his page. Somebody can answer my answer to that question is, I'm an employee, Alec. And again, how much is this Blu-ray worth? I can tell you because I'm a professional. And when I make special features, I know exactly how much it's worth and how much I got paid. The real question is, Alec, how much did this Blu-ray get Axanar? If you look, everybody should take a look at this. If you donated for the Blu-ray level, which is like, what, $65, $75, and how many Blu-rays were sold after the fact, I didn't get paid a dime for that, except maybe the $20,000 Alec may have put into his financials, saying that he paid me to alleviate that $30,000 debt. So I would say that really, if I owe Alec any money, which I don't, because I believe I worked it off during the lawsuit because I didn't get paid the $3,000 a month I was supposed to get paid during the entirety of 2016. But I would say that, hence I believe I don't owe Alec a dime. Or at least I certainly don't owe Alec the money that Alec owes, say, Diana Kingsbury or others. Are you still sour about Discovery? I am not sour at all about Discovery. I just want Discovery to be better. I think it's bad Star Trek and bad science fiction. But that's all in the writing. But I'm not sour about it. It's cool that there's a new Star Trek show on the air. Season 2 looks pretty good. I watch. Sean Meenan asks, am I intrigued by the potential Picard series come out in late 2019? Yes, I hope it's great. Please be great. Circus Maximus says there was a replica maker you mentioned yesterday, other than Master Replicas, saying they made a better TOS communicator. How does their, you know what it is? It's the company that made the Bluetooth. I don't know the name of that company. I'm drawing a blank. Ronald Chaplin says, what do you know about Alec ripping off Hutzel's widow over the Trials and Tribulations Enterprise? I spoke to that. I already spoke to that, but I will say that the lawsuit that's going on in Las Vegas, Alec made $235,000 off that sale, and apparently he only gave Gary Hutzel's widow $100,000. Again, this is all hearsay. I have the bill of sale and I have the check that was written to Alec, copies of those things, so I can verify that that's an actual an amount. Alec there were 3 payments made to Alec, of which I have as well, and I can put that information on my website. The Wan Company made those things. John Pauly says, angry answers, demeaning detractors' responses from Axanar defenders still remind me so much of Alec Rage. Well, there's no reason to get mad about all these things. Reality is reality. What happened, happened. And you can't get mad. Like, if you want to swim in a pool where you're making some you're making publicly consumed entertainment, you need to expect the slings and arrows. I mean, look, I think it's either the worst movie ever made or their favorite movie ever made. There's very few people that are in the middle. I've had film festival programs thrown at me and people scream, but you know what? My next one will be better. Bill B says, "Hey Rob, thanks for the tip on the Fan Films movie. I loved it." Well, oh, you mean the Backyard Blockbusters? I'm glad you went and saw that. Yes, there's a great movie about fan films called Backyard Blockbusters. Everybody should check it out. Robert says, "Would you be happy if Discovery replaced the Prime timeline going forward?" No. I loved Star Trek for 40 years because of the Prime time line going forward. I don't think Discovery is really, really very good. I don't see that Star Trek was always a hopeful, an optimistic, hopeful show that addressed allegorically the issues of the day, wrapped in the context of a science fiction action adventure series. And I don't see Discovery doing that. I see Discovery as an amalgamation of a bunch of other things that aren't Star Trek, which I think is very weird. What is the name of my website? Everybody go to theburnettwork.net. Check it out. It's under construction. I mean, it's live, but it's under construction. Let's see. Bill Barkley says someone should do an animated or live action Star Trek versus Transformers. Well, yes, there was a comic that they just did that. IDW just did that. Dave Galanter says, Rob, how many of Alec's lies about others do you finally see as lies now that he's lying about you? Well, here's the thing. That's a good question. By the way, Dave Galanter's written some Star Trek novels. Alec's grasp of the truth shifts depending on what he wants to believe at the time. And yeah, I mean, look, he tried to flatter me by saying, you were the one that really directed Prelude to Axanar. And I understand what he meant, but you can't tell somebody something that isn't true and expect them to believe it. I would sit and go, yeah, well, I did have an extraordinary amount of creative input during the editorial of Prelude to Axanar, but that was by design. That's what I was allowed to do by Christian and Alec. So good on them. But Alec's tenuous grasp of the truth shifts depending on what he needs it to be, and it's not like I didn't see that at the time. But I know lots of people that have, display idiosyncratic behavior that I have to deal with. It comes with the territory, especially in Hollywood. Captain Robert April says Discovery is not only bad Star Trek, it's bad television, it's hack writing, cardboard characters, and it goes out of its way to insult the fan base. Here's my problem with Discovery. There was no real showrunners. There was different factions of writers trying to do different things at the same time. Everybody wants a piece of that Star Trek cheddar. And there's a lot of money that went into making that show. It's one of the most expensive television series ever produced. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because it is. George Silsby said, nice glasses, Robert. Can we get a Gilbert fan film someday? I'm working on a Gilbert video game, actually. And these glasses are just these readers that we have lying all around the house. Lucas Kendall says, and I'm Michael Cohen. Yes, I pretty much was, I guess. Circus Maximus says, April, I'm looking for the Trek equivalents of, say, a prop M16 if I wanted a military prop. You can find those around. Rob, your room reminds me of the home I grew up in, full of memorabilia, books, and all kinds of stuff, and organized chaos. Yeah. Actually, this is my girlfriend's side, and this is my side. She's a fine artist. And I like this room. It's kind of, this is our studio, basically. Let's see. Sean, I got to imagine the prime timeline. Okay. Trek 001 says, wait, you have a girlfriend? Dude, I've always had girlfriends. Just saying. I was married once too. Bill B says, I really like the documentary style that was done with Prelude. What is your thoughts on that style of Star Trek? I thought it was really cool. Do you think any other fan film might take advantage of that type of storytelling? I think there's one about the Romulan War that's doing that type of storytelling. I think it's cool. It's a great way to save money, to tell an epic story and not break the bank. Ronald Chaplin says, don't you think you would have had a better chance of directing real Trek if you had stayed doing hard, great work for CBS Paramount? No. You have to understand, getting a directing job on TV is a very difficult proposition. The only television direction I've done is for HBO Cinemax's late night show Femme Fatales. And while I'm proud of the work I did, we shot all those episodes in 3 days. I would look, as far as the world is concerned, I directed one movie 20 years ago, which is like I haven't directed a movie at all. I directed 5 episodes of a TV show, and I've directed a lot of music videos, and I've produced a lot of things and edited a lot of things. But getting into Paramount as a director for a show is a very difficult proposition, and one needs the chops and the resume to do it. Mine is not going to get me there until I do a lot more stuff. Storm in 1775 says, Rob, many of us who are donors were censored and banned on the official Axanar pages on Facebook just for asking accountability questions. Were you aware he was doing that? Yes, and I completely disagreed. Anybody that donated money to Axanar, whether it was $5 or $10,000, deserved a full accounting of whenever they wanted of how their money was being spent. If we'd had a production accountant, they could have put out a monthly spreadsheet of every dollar that was spent during the production. It should have been completely transparent. At least I thought. I think that would have gone a long way with CBS too. And you should never be banned for asking questions of people that you've given money to. That's why they have shareholder meetings. Rick H says, greetings from Seattle. Greetings to you, Rick H. How is Seattle these days? Eat a bag of dicks. And anyone from Seattle knows what I mean by that. I should probably clarify it. Dick's Drive-In is a venerable Seattle institution that's been around for decades. Let's see. Anybody? Darth Cisco says, Femme Fatales was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Captain Robert April says, I'm working with Bijo Tremble on the next update of the Star Trek Concordance. So knowing the timeline is kind of my business, there is no reconciling Discovery. I agree. There isn't. And it's annoying. Will the CBS Paramount licensing issues ever be solved to save Star Trek going forward? Oh, I think that they are. They're making them. Are the J.J. Abrams Treks dead, or is there a chance of them continuing? They look for all the success they paint those movies as having. They were incredibly expensive to make and market, and they did not perform nearly as well as hoped, especially compared to how other franchises are performing. So I don't know. I'd like to see one. Storm in 1775 says, those censor ban actions have been one of the main reasons so many of us turned on Peters and are anxious to hold him accountable. I agree. He talks a good game, but tough questions should never be a problem to answer, especially if you're on the up and up. Sirius Prime says, Starius Prime says, hey Rob, what are your thoughts on Mark Sacree's Space Command project? That's been going on for a long time. It's true, but Mark Sacree has been ever inching forward. He released the half an hour of Space Command. He shot it. He's got a lot of post-production issues with that, but he's moving forward. Axanar Defender says, Rob, tell that to Chris Roberts, who think we are all giving him charity. Star Citizen funding makes me go crazy. Soon is my trigger word. Okay. Yeah, it's a different thing entirely, and there's a lot more money involved. Bill Hunt says, every studio in Hollywood wants to develop their own vast and interconnected cinematic universe. Star Trek is one of the greatest ever created, and it should be treated and revered as such, not rebooted. Hugh Grant says, sup, dude, quick question. Do you like knee gas? I'm not up on that, so I would imagine no. I don't want gas in my knee. Lucas Kendall says, a guy at Bad Robot told me they thought Star Trek was just Pepsi, always the second choice. They love Jurassic Park as the ideal blockbuster. I know. Star Trek is currently being controlled by people who never like Star Trek that much, and it drives me crazy, except people like Michael Chabon and Kirsten Byers. Rob, there's an odd-shaped vessel in all shadows in space dock in Star Trek 3. Do you think this could be a decommissioned Discovery? No. I know that it is the model of the original Planet of the Titans Enterprise. Michael Hinman asked, the Axanar Defender, if soon is your trigger word, maybe you should make Axanar soon. Ronald Chaplin says, do you do any research on Alec's history before joining or choosing to stay with the project? I didn't. I didn't. I was not in the prop world. I didn't. I accept people at face value. I don't do Google searches on them. If we break bread and I like the person. And by the way, you have to all remember, Prelude to Axanar went off without a hitch. Everything worked great. It was a fantastic time. And, that proved to me that, oh my God, here's a project I want to be involved with. I never thought I was going to do a Star Trek fan film. I did Prelude to Axanar as kind of a lark. It was a funny way to fritter away my extra free time. Not that I had any, but It was great. I could never have seen what would have happened with Axanar. Did you watch and like the CW Elseworlds crossover this year? Asks George Silsby. I did. You guys should watch me on The Weekly Hero. I do a show on the John Campea Show channel called The Weekly Hero. Tune in and watch that every Wednesday. I also do his daily show most of the time, the John Campea Show. We are live every morning at 9 o'clock on YouTube on the John Campea Show. So check that out. Jake Yakavetta asks, RMB, if there was a Star Trek exhibition match, would you want to play Inman or someone else? Bring it on. I'll play anybody. That's a Schmodown reference, by the way. Captain Robert April says Alex should embrace his true destiny and get a job on the nearest used car dealership. Well, as Alec will tell you, he's an entrepreneur, so he's always entrepreneuring. Let's see. The Axanar Defender says things are happening now. Great. Good. Make them happen. Tell Alec to stop spending money suing other people and put it into his goddamn movie. Let's see. Circus. The people running Star Trek do care. They're just not Star Trek fans. Circus Maximus. Oh, that wedge-shaped ship with the small saucer that eventually showed up at Wolf 359. Yes, which Alec, by the way, had one of those. I don't know if he sold it. Let's see. Jippy050 says, you say they don't care about Star Trek yet. After Comic-Con, you sang Ted Sullivan's praise. For those who don't know, I went back and forth with Ted Sullivan because I was in a Twitter fight about how Hollywood is a meritocracy, and people objected to that. And Ted Sullivan and I, who was at the time working on Discovery, I don't know if he's still on Discovery for season 2, but we got into it. And I basically said, you guys should learn to write screenplays. And I met him at Comic-Con, and I listened to his stories about growing up a Star Trek fan. And I really liked Ted Sullivan. I thought he was great. And I apologized to him. I actually saw him at a bar, and I went up to him, after going back and forth on Twitter and I was an asshole. I'll admit it. And I liked him. Rob, what is your post-Axanar relationship? Stormin1775 says, Rob, what is your post-Axanar relationship with Christian Gossett? Would you consider a dual interview with him and You by Carlos Pedraza? Sure. I've always loved Christian. I've never disliked Christian. I didn't like the way how he left Axanar because he told us one thing and did something else. But I understand where he's coming from. It was very emotional time. And I've always loved and respected Christian. I've known him for the better part of 2 decades. We still do the closing comic at San Diego Comic-Con. We still do Starship Smackdown. Jake Yakavetta says, holy shit, you're one of the only 3 people to actually pronounce my last name right. Because you know why? Because Alec Peters brought John Yacovelli, who was the production designer of Babylon 5, on to work and consult on Axanar. So I assume that Yakavetta was like Yacovelli. What a cool last name, by the way. Bilby says, blatant promo here, but have you ever heard the Star Trek radio drama Call to Unity? I have not. I can listen to it. Nay, Brian Fuller always dreamed of doing Star Trek right, then he left the show after Discovery. Yeah, that's an interesting story. Very interesting story, but that is a story Brian Fuller must tell. Captain Robert April says, the current hope regarding CBS is that with Moonves loyalists being replaced by Redstone loyalists, it'll bring in people, at least what Star Trek did for Paramount back in the day. I hope so. Rick Van Boberson says, Ted Sullivan is utterly a mess and so toxic toward the fans. I'm not surprised. I don't know that. My only experience with him was at one time, and I liked him. Did someone ever make a model of the Enterprise J from Enterprise? I don't know. I think Eagle Moss did. Newstuff 75 said you should do a collaboration with Jason Inman someday. Jason Inman, his wife Ashley V. Robinson, and I did did Discovery reviews, on-camera Discovery reviews for the Collider channel. Moshin Raza says, sir, I'm your biggest fan in the world. Thanks. The Axanar Defender says, you are both too charged about each other to mediate your own settlements to the beef. Look, I wasn't charged at all. You have to understand, Axanar was in the past. I moved forward. I got charged about Axanar when I read in an email that Alec wrote about me that he wanted to destroy my life and ruin my reputation. Let's be clear about that. That was also during the time he tried to sue me for, at first it was $45,000. Now he's claiming I owe him $30,000. Which is it? What happened to the $20,000 he was going to pay me to do this? Did that go into his financials? I don't know. Um, let's see. John Parley says, how did you and Sean P. O'Halloran make up, you guys? At one point, were the furthest thing from friends. I've never met Sean P. O'Halloran, and I did a really dickish thing. I doxed him. I found his, you should never dox anybody, by the way, but he was just an asshole. And, I made comments about his wife, he's got a very attractive wife. I was beyond the line. These are things you just don't do. But there was that was when we were still trying to get Axanar made. I was a dick to Sean. Now, by all accounts, Sean's a nice guy. Everyone I've ever talked to that actually knows him and sees him at Star Trek LV really likes him. So I'm not a bad person, and I don't hold grudges. I can be a dick. Sometimes I go off the handle, but I have nothing against the guy. He's a father and a husband, and he provides for his family, and he loves Star Trek. There you go. Someone else should make Axanar. It's not like Alec owns the IP. No, he doesn't own any of Axanar. That's why I feel confident I can release all the material that I worked on and made for the Axanar project, because, I was never paid what I was promised working on that project. So there you go. Let's see. Sirius Prime says, here's my take on Axanar. For what it's worth, I backed it because I love the idea and believed in it. In spite of everything, I don't regret doing it for those reasons. Neither do I. I don't regret one moment that I got to work on the Axanar project. I had the best time working on Prelude and working on Axanar, designing visual effects and watching Tobias Richter execute those designs and frequently make them better. One of the things I'm going to release is we went through a design process to create Starbase One that you see in trailers and things that have been released from the Axanar feature. And that was delightful. He got Andy Probert to work on these things. It was amazing. It was working on the Axanar feature film for the time I was actually working on it was delightful. I had the best time. It was like I was a kid in a candy store. That's another reason why it's, again, like Elias Sandoval's dream. Another dream that failed. There's nothing sadder. Ronald Chapin says, why didn't you feel the need to correct the lies from Alec after you left the production? Why did it take being sued to bring the truth to light? Because it's not my production. I was never an equal on that. I started out as the editor. I never participated in the oversight of the money. Alec called all the shots. I was, as I said, an employee and somebody that was working on the project. It was not my place to talk, and I would have remained silent had Alec not sued me and then said in an email once again that he wanted to destroy my reputation and ruin my life. So that's what brought me to talk. Rob, what is your take on some Axanar followers who are so dedicated that they don't see some of the things Alec does as unsavory? Well, our country is full of people that don't see others as being full of doing or participating in actions as they see as unsavory. Look, we're all deluded in some way, shape, or form. I was deluded. I bought into the idea that I would eventually get to work on a Star Trek feature film, as whether it was at first as an editor, but as a creative consultant. And that just didn't happen. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. Axanar Defender says Ares 3.0 is coming out January 2019, and then perks are rolling out. Ares 3.0? Good. I hope they do. People have been waiting since 2014 for some of these perks. And you know what? If Alec hadn't lost the drives, he could make those Axanar Origins discs that we started creating material for. And if he wants that stuff from me, he can pay me for them. At least pay me for, I don't know, babysitting his data that he lost. Let's see. Gabriel Kerner says, Rob, I responded to your doxing the way it was way off, and I still feel bad about it. Alec came aggressively. Gabe, yes, you too were an asshole and were beyond the pale, and I was a little worried for a time, but I've known you for a long time, and you know what? We work in a crazy business, and I don't bear anybody any ill will. There have been times when I've flaked, when I've been lazy. People put up with all kinds of things from me. I can certainly put up with some things from others. You're busting your ass out there. You're trying to work. You're doing some great work. And there's no reason why we can't move forward. We have to be on this rock together for hopefully a long time, at least long enough where I can see Avengers Endgame. Captain Robert April says, what would really put the cherry on top of this shit Sunday? Getting CBS Home Video to release all of this stuff on Blu-ray. Well, we did. Axanar Defender says, FYI, the first mega batch of patches came in, waiting on the graphic. First of all, I don't understand this. I personally stuffed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of envelopes full of patches. We had rooms. We had a room full of boxes of Axanar patches, all the fleet patches, I don't understand why people don't have those patches. I mean, this is 3 years ago. I have videos of us stuffing patches. Why people don't have their patches now? What patches are they missing? I don't know. But these were all done, in my mind, a long time ago. So when you talk about, oh, people are going to get patches, they should have gotten patches 3 years ago. At least all the fleet patches. What the hell? I don't understand. Let's see. I wish CBS would release Star Trek Continues on Blu-ray. They can't, because CBS, there's union rules and there's SAG rules, and everybody, the rights issues for Star Trek alone are terrible. There's just a lot to get through. If Alec is watching, what would you say to him? Here's what I'd say to Alec if he's watching. Alec, go make your fucking movies. Stop talking. Stop suing people. Stop blaming everybody for your fucking problems, and go make your goddamn 15-minute Axanar shorts so everybody can shut the fuck up and you can drop your mic finally. Go do it. Make it happen. Give the donors what they deserve if they can't. Because I'll tell you something. I'm certainly going to release everything I made for Axanar. While it's not going to be any kind of a coherent narrative, it's certainly going to be a lot more than you've done for the fans over the last 2 years since the CBS settlement. So go do that. And by the way, next time you want to write in an email to somebody I'm working with that you're going to ruin my reputation and destroy my life, you should probably not do that. I think so. There's a lot of other things I'd say to Alec Peters too, but I want to leave it on the professional tip. Circus Maximus says, how is Andy Probert? I used to enjoy talking to him on Twitter, but he got disgusted with some of the Twitter unfair banning. He and others and 2 friends of mine suffered and left. Yes, Andy he's right-wing and he has very outspoken beliefs, but he believes in them utterly. And I only ever had the greatest experience with Andy Probert. He participated in the Next Generation Blu-rays, and he was great. I loved working with him. Rob, do you still have the Ludovico Technique office in Castaic? Writer Beal Ali says, no, unfortunately, that was our Aries Studios offices. I'm between offices now. Storm in 1775 says, I'm not seeing Axanar Defender's posts here, but apparently he's afraid of me and blocked me. See, this is a problem. I agreed to come onto this post. I even called myself an asshole. I went to do this post, and I expect other people to come on here. If you're banning people within the chat and you can't handle the truth, well, that's what Colonel Nathan Jessup would say, or that's what Alec Peters portraying Colonel Nathan Jessup would say, and you're going to see that soon. Gabe Kerner says, Rob, myself, Denise Crosby, and Roger Nygaard had meetings at Paramount about a Trekkie spinoff, Garage Trek. Wow, that would be cool. Star Trek Continues has all the files you need to burn your own DVDs on their website. See, that's good. Glad I never contributed to this mess, Daniel Ring says. Well, everybody that contributed to Prelude to Axanar and could get this wonderful Blu-ray, which is very well produced by me, I think it's great. The Collider Heroes with you and Campy and Schnepp was the best episode ever. Well, thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. Schlabist. Rob, what is your website called? It is Robservations. It's theburnettwork.net. Go to theburnettwork.net. I'll be releasing all kinds of interesting stuff on there. Pat Krutke says, Rob, did you not know back then that the studio was the end game for Axanar Productions and not the movie? That's not true. That's not true. The studio was never the end game. We wanted to make the Axanar movie. The fact that as a byproduct of the Axanar movie, we would have a studio was great. And I certainly was one of the ones that was very excited about it. But that was never the end game. Remember, there's a difference between a movie studio and a place called a studio where you actually do work. That studio was always going to have to be rented out and paid for by whatever project was brought in to be in that facility. It's not like we're going to keep the money. Once Axanar was made, it's not like the studio would still exist. It would have to be funded by other projects. We didn't have a line of credit or a bank giving us money. So this idea that the studio is the end game, what, you mean an empty warehouse that needs productions to come in and shoot there? No, that was an ongoing concern that was something that was going to have to be funded after Axanar was finished. It was never the end game. Michael Hinman says, do we have to thank you for Eric McCormack? Do we have you to thank for Eric McCormack? If so, thank you. Oh, thank you. I wouldn't say you have me. What's really interesting is right after, literally days after we filmed Free Enterprise, Eric McCormack was cast, or he either was cast or he screen tested for Will on Will and Grace. So it happened at the same time. I'd seen Eric in a terrible sci-fi movie called Island City. But when he came in, he was the very first person we auditioned for Free Enterprise, and I'm like, hire him. Z Team Production said Lucasfilm never released a DVD of the official Star Wars fan films, even though they were all cleared legally for distribution. That's not true. In the box set of the Blu-rays of all 6 movies, episodes 1 through 6, there are fan films on those Blu-rays. The Axanar defender Rob says, Rob, I blocked him because I don't want to have an insult fest with a troll who pretended he is like Gunnery Sergeant, the finest man who ever lived. He is not worth lowering myself to his level. Look, man, you get online, you get in a public forum, you gotta take the slings and arrows where they come from. That's what a public forum is all about. The problem that we have in this country is we don't have proper discourse, even when the questions are difficult and the answers might not be answers we want to hear. It's simply people sharing ideas. And don't worry about it, whoever's memory is going to be insulted. The studio was never the end game, Ronald. It just wasn't. Let's see. Michael Mahoney says 2018 was pretty terrible, but seeing that A Few Good Men thing might make it okay. The Edit Doctor says Free Enterprise is one of the best debut films. Well, thank you. It's unfortunately it's my only film, so I guess it wasn't that great. I'd sure like to get it out on Blu-ray this year, though. The Axanar defender says, I'm not going to have slap fights with your sycophants. My sycophants? Mine? I mean, this is an open forum. Do I have sycophants? I don't know. What is the Axanar project as it moves forward other than a project for sycophants? I don't know. Michael Anders says, Rob, why do you think Axanar has for years now inspired so much drama, even from complete non-participants, leaving aside whatever you, Alec, or anyone else did or didn't do? Well, here's the thing. There wasn't any drama until $1.5 million was given to the project. The project then did not deliver what it promised, and then it was sued. Once it became sued in public, nobody gave a fuck about Prelude or a fan film. Prelude to Axanar would have stood as a shining beacon of what fan films can achieve if we never went any further than that. But look, I participated. I didn't shut my goddamn mouth. I ran my mouth about Axanar all the time. How many Axanar podcasts did I do with Alec talking about how great we were, how great the project was? We should have shut our fucking mouths and made our movie, which, by the way, violates everything. I violated everything I believe in as a professional in this business. I don't even like it when people put things on the IMDb until they're already shot. I can't stand when people sit there and talk about shit they're going to do. If you're going to do something, fucking go do it. Don't talk about it. Get it done. And go put your film on the IMDb after you've made it, after it's shot. Our problem was we did not buckle down. We should have shut the fuck up and made the movie and dropped it off into the internet and let it go. And then started talking about it. That was a mistake. And I am guilty as charged. Let's see. Let's see. Matthew Briggs says, if Peters hadn't, I think my digital light is flickering out. It's battery powered. I'm losing my light. Maybe if I turn down the power, it'll last longer. No, I'm gonna have to turn this off, guys. It's gonna die, and I don't like the flickering. Let's see. Let's see. It's 1:34. Do I keep going? Michael Heyman says the edit doctor. Michael Heyman says, edit doctor, I agree. I was an R&B fan because of Free Enterprise, and it's nice to work to be a fan again, even if we disagree about Discovery. Well, thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. Back at you. Ronald Chapin says, Alec again said it was. You keep ignoring that part. Look, I don't know when Alec said the studio was the end game. People have reported that. All I can tell you is that we started this project to make a feature film. That's what that period. The studio is a byproduct of when we got in so much money. If we didn't get in that much money, we wouldn't have. We probably would have gone to James Cawley's sets and shot it. Let's see. Portia says, bring on Free Enterprise 2. I'm still working on that. Trying. Matthew Briggs says, if no one could make any money from a Star Trek fan films, why did you think you was to get $3,000 a month? Because I had to live. See, here's the thing that people don't understand. You know, I had to work on a movie full time. And I had to work on a movie full time at the expense of doing other work. The only way that I could have worked on, what did you think, by the way, the $1.5 million we were to get was for? It's to provide manpower and equipment. That's it. I mean, just because we're making a fan film, this is what people, I just don't, here's the difference. If I was not making something that was based on someone else's IP, if I was just making a movie and I took in $1.5 million, I would absolutely pay all of the people working on that movie because they're doing work. They're exchanging goods and services and their abilities and their time, and they expect to get paid, period. The only difference between that idea is that we raise money on the backs of a previously existing IP, and we're promising to make a film. But even that film was never going to be made as a commodity. It never would have been something we could have sold. So even when Axanar was done, I was not being paid my rate. I was being paid the bare minimum I needed a month, which was $3,000 to pay my bills, to buy gas, to pay for a car, to pay for any incidentals, and maybe go out and have a few drinks now and again. That's what I was being paid, like everybody else that was going to work on the project. That's why we needed to raise money. You don't, if movie making was free, you wouldn't need to raise any money at all. It's not sycophant, it's sycophant. We went through this yesterday. Let's see. Jake Yacovetta says, Rob, you missed my last question. What work of yours do I need to see? I only know you from the Schmodown. Okay, well, Jake, I wrote and directed a motion picture that stars William Shatner and Eric McCormick, 2 Emmy Award winners, called Free Enterprise. Try and find the Anchor Bay 2006 double disc DVD. I also was the co-producer on both Agent Cody Banks movies. I actually purchased the original Agent Cody Banks script with 2 partners, and we spinned it off to MGM. On Agent Cody Banks, the main titles of that film come at the end. I'm the only of the 13 producers on that movie. I'm the only person with a single card credit in the main titles, which, if you know anything about the industry, is cool. I also produced a horror film for Warner Brothers called The Hills Run Red, which you can get on DVD, and it's streaming in high def on Vudu, I believe. I also produced all kinds of special features. I worked on X-Men 1, X-Men 2, Superman Returns, Usual Suspects, Chronicles of Narnia, Shoot 'em Up, Valley Girl, the 30th anniversary, well, the 20th. Valley Girl was re-released on Blu-ray by Shout Select this year. Last month, I produced special features that are on that back in 2003 that they brought forward. The Star Trek The Next Generation box set, get that. It's awesome. I worked on the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Check that out. Let's see. Okay. Shauna Gilkson? Shauna, if I mispronounce that, I apologize. Shauna Gilkson says, I know it was like an hour ago, but you're the first person besides me I've heard say what a rush editing is. Not pertinent to Axanar, but I thought it was cool. I love being in the zone too. It's the best. You know, when you edit and you're in the zone, time compresses. You will sit down at a table and it's like getting hit by the Looker gun from Looker, you know, and you wake up and it's 10 hours later. I love that. Looker came out, by the way, on Blu-ray from Warner Archive. Let's see. Circus Maximus says, to sort of paraphrase Bane, Prelude gives us hope, and that hope was taken away. That's why the high emotions. Yes. Storm in 1775 says Rob Peters claims Prelude won 47 awards. Is that a reasonable claim? Yes, it did. It won awards at all kinds of different film festivals. Thanks to Horace Austin, the great Horace Austin, who was one of our big donors on Axanar, but he submitted the film to many different festivals. I actually won my one and only editorial award for Prelude to Axanar Film Festival. George Silsby said, great stream, Rob. If you ever want to join myself and Carlos Pedraza on our audio podcast, hit Carlos up. I will. I absolutely will do that. Z-Team Production says you should have used Collie sets. You know what, though, man? We'd have to do some painting. If we did anything that changed those sets, I think James Collie would have gone apeshit. But I was really, really, really honored to shoot on his sets for the Heroes vignette. It was really, really cool. Those sets are unbelievable. I recommend, look, everybody should go see James Collie sets in Ticonderoga, New York. Just walking in there, if you're a Star Trek fan, I swear to God, you'll start crying. Let's see. Great show, Rob. Happy New Year from the UK. Can you tweet your website? Having trouble finding it. I can. I don't know if it's live yet. It is theburnettwork.net. Anyone think that Bill Shatner will ever guest on Discovery? He might, but I bet he'll guest on the Orville first. What do you think of Space Command in comparison to the Axanar debacle? Well, Space Command released a half an hour this year. They were at Comic-Con showing it. Good on them. They also didn't get sued. Let's see. Can you tell? Shane Acree says, can you tell us anything about Tony Todd leaving the production and why they kept using his likeness in advertising after he left? Well, here's the thing. Tony Todd was in Prelude to Axanar. Full stop. He was in it. He agreed to be in it. And Tony Todd was wonderful. You can watch on my channel, The Burnettwork, my 45-minute documentary on the making of Prelude to Axanar, where I interviewed all the principals involved. And by the way, I didn't put myself in that documentary because I was making it. I think he left because once he heard Christian's concerns about the potential of money being misused, he left. And God love Tony Todd. Did you see both the Arrow and the Shout versions of the Candyman that came out? Candyman, not the Candyman. Unbelievable. So good. Let's see. Captain Robert April says the studio being the end game is the bright red line that brought the wrath of CBS, because in the end, you've got a working studio built upon a project based on an IP owned by somebody else. I don't know. Again, I don't think it's true. I don't know what a working studio means. We had a warehouse. We had a sound stage where people still would have to come in and rent it. There was nothing there that was working. Like if we walked out of the building, it's not like there was a sentient AI going, I'm going to figure out a way to make money and I'm going to mine Bitcoin. And there's nothing like that. Let's see. Let's see. Looking down here. He'll show up. Well, first, Bill Hunt, my friend, I can't believe 2 years later we're still dealing with Axanar drama. Bill Hunt says this. After slings, arrows, trenches, and depositions, the word Axanar makes me roll my eyes. Also, I gave $100 and I want my perks. Well, apparently, Axanar 3.0 is going to bring you those perks, Bill. Elizabeth, my girlfriend, also gave $100. Pardon me, $100 to Axanar, and she has yet to get her perks. I never even went upstairs and took those patches out of the fulfillment room. I didn't take anything, by the way, from the fulfillment room. And yes, by the way, Bill Hunt, I believe his book is called Only Those Who Risk. He has finished his first science fiction novel. And I'm waiting to get the re-edited version. He just went through and tweaked a little bit. He's written his first novel. It's done. Look out for that. It's incredible. The novel is action-packed and has a really interesting take. And it's astronomically correct. Let's see. And Bill Hunt is correct. I can't believe we're talking about Axanar 2 years later. I resigned in November of 2017. I thought I was done with Axanar as well. JG Winnell says, Rob, for editing, I love to use Final Cut Pro, but use Premiere. Do you have either package or another package for video editing? I have 4 editorial softwares on my computer. I have Final Cut X, I have Avid, I have Premiere, and I have DaVinci Resolve. Bing Bailey, who colored Axanar, has got me into using DaVinci because then we can edit. You can edit DaVinci and then color in DaVinci as well. I edited Tango Shalom, the movie I'm working on now, and Skyfighter, Lucas Kendall's film, on Final Cut X, which has been very interesting. Homer Frizzell, those sets in Ticonderoga are amazing. He says, yes. Z Team Production says, Collie sets are glorious. Yes, they are. Edit Doctor says, Prelude to Axanar is really cool. Yep, it is. It is really cool, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Daniel Ring says, thanks for the feedback on Axanar. Absolutely. Ronald Chapin says, why did you leave the production after Alex said Tony could barely read? I don't know. Did he say that? Tony could barely read. You know what my favorite thing is? And I won't put this out, but there was a time when Tony Todd was shooting, and it was so fun to watch him. He actually says at one point, he goes, those Klingon motherfuckers. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, can we put that in the movie? But we didn't. Let's see. Axanar Defender says, just waiting on the new database. Really? Waiting on the new database? We started this project in 2014. It's 2019. And you're waiting on a database to get fulfillment of perks out? Is that supposed to be something that people are going to go, oh, good. Good for you guys. Hey. Bill Barkley asked, do you ever think we'll get real transporters in the far-flung future? Maybe. Let's see. Rob, Unkind Tater Nut says, well, Rob, wish you a happy New Year's and everyone be safe, fellow nerds. Yes, Alex said that about Tony. Well, Alex said that about Tony, that he could barely read. Well, maybe that's another reason Tony Todd left. The Axanar Defender says, there are over 4,000 people to sort and add bonus to. Dude, we did that. You don't understand. We already did all that. We stuffed those envelopes. I don't know if you ever saw them, but there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of envelopes with patches in them. Did they ever get sent out? I saw them being sent out. I don't know who didn't get their patches. Max Kaiserman said, you've had 3 years. Yes. Z Team Production says, how effing hard is it to print address labels? I don't know. I don't even know why people are still talking about this. Like as if giving out perks for a project that started 5 years ago is some kind of I don't know. Robert, what is your most prized collectible from Star Wars, DC Comics, and Marvel? I think my most prized collectible that I own is right above my head here. It's my Free Enterprise one sheet signed by William Shatner. It says, to Rob, what a beginning. Fondly, Bill. That's my most prized possession. The Axanar Defender says, Rob, 12,000 additional patches were bought. Okay, so send them out. They're patches. Like, why hasn't this been done? We had a director of fulfillment sending packages every day of her life for years. Tom Bateman says, why do you think CBS chose to sue Axanar on other productions? I'll tell you something. Jonathan Lane actually did a great job addressing this in his chats with Matthew Miller from Trek.org. It is because after the Vulcan scene came out, there was the possibility for confusion in the marketplace. And that we learned about that in the lawsuit. And I believe that, especially once they decided to make Star Trek Discovery and move forward with their plans. I could see that. Sirius Prime says, yeah, I think a lot of the confusion with the patches comes from the fact that there were different ones for each of the 3 Kicks crowd campaigns. Perhaps. I can't believe I'm talking about patches. Between the patches and the unmade 15-minute films, I mean, Axanar is the most incompetent crowd-funded campaign probably in history. I know you can talk about Star Citizen, but God. Shane Aker says, you should read this story that was posted in Axa Monitor when you get done with your podcast. It's like a train wreck conversation taking place. Perhaps. Anyway, guys, that is it for me. I want to wish everyone a fine and happy New Year's and a great 2019. Hopefully, I think all of us want to see the 2 15-minute Axanar shorts made in grand fashion, as at least as well as Prelude. I would hope they would exceed Prelude by a wide margin. I hope it all gets done for all the donors and for everyone. And if Alec Peters is going to come after and sue me and use his own money to once again try suing me again, I guess I'll start the Robert Meyer Burnett Legal Defense Fund. I hope you'll all participate. Anyway, Happy New Year, and keep watching me. By the way, keep watching the Burnettwork here. Look up for Robservations. I've got a lot more content coming. Of course, catch me on the John Campea Show every morning at 9 a.m. And also watch The Weekly Hero. You can follow me on Twitter at BurnettRM. You can follow me on Instagram at RMBurnett. I participate. I want to say I really appreciate all of my community of who live in the post. My community is called the Post Geek Singularity. I want to I just extend my appreciation to everyone who's watched these live chats. I want you to participate, to subscribe, to continue to interact with me, and to share with me the things that you love and that you're excited about. And if you have any other questions about anything, I look forward to hearing them. I will not be doing another live chat on Axanar unless something else really interesting comes down the pike. I will continue to share Axanar materials and information, and maybe you'll get a little surprise today, something fun that you're all going to love. Anyway, that's me. That's it. Peace out. Thank you for watching these live streams. I really am curious to see what everyone has to say about this. But, you know, I try to be as honest, magnanimous, and forthright as I could be, kind of like John Glenn and The Right Stuff. So live long and prosper. And remember, everyone you meet has a story to tell that you haven't heard yet. All you have to do is listen. Thanks.